Hello everyone and welcome to another Grosso University educational workshop. My name is Dominic Caminata, CEO of Grosso University, the industry-leading training group. And I'm excited to have you joining us today for what I believe is one of the most important conversations happening in the home improvement industry today. Over the years, we've trained thousands of sales professionals, and one thing that has become crystal clear is the companies that are consistently outperforming everyone else aren't just simply hiring better salespeople, they're building better systems. They combine a proven sales process with technology that helps their people execute the process consistently every single time. That's exactly what today's workshop is all about. We're honored once again to be joined by a true industry legend and someone I've had the privilege of knowing for many, many years, Mr. Tim Mush, who is the business development specialist at Paradigm Vendo. Tim has spent decades helping some of the most successful home improvement companies in North America leverage both technology to improve both customer experience and sales performance. Today we are thrilled to be bringing you this educational workshop which is titled How Top Technology and Sales Process Create Unstoppable Closers, which is sweet music to our ears here at Grosso University. Our goal today isn't just to promote the software, and it isn't just to talk about sales process. Our goal is to show you what happens when world-class sales process is combined with world-class sales technology. At Grosso University, we've always believed that process creates consistency, and Paradigm Vendo believes that technology should empower the salesperson, not replace them. When you combine these two philosophies together, something truly special happens. The sales presentation becomes more organized, the customer experience becomes more personalized, and the salesperson becomes much more confident. Most importantly, the homeowner feels more comfortable making one of the biggest investments they'll ever make. And today we're going to walk through each step of the sales process and show you exactly how Paradigm Vendo can enhance every phase of the customer journey. From the initial needs assessment to the final close, you'll see exactly how this technology and the sales process integrate together to truly create a masterful presentation. So again, a very lengthy intro there. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us once again.
My pleasure.
Honored to have you in the Grosso University studio. And obviously you came down from La Crosse, and what is it, just over two-hour drive?
Just about exactly 2 hours, yeah.
Okay, nice sunny day. It's about 95 degrees here in Wisconsin. But just kind of starting this thing off, can you give the audience just a brief overview? What exactly is Paradigm Vendo, and why is it one of the premier sales enablement platforms in the industry today?
Yeah, what Paradigm Vendo is, it's a sales presentation / quoting tool that takes you through the whole presentation. You know, I think a lot of people have an idea that what Vendo is just a quoting tool, but it goes well beyond that. So I've been really excited about what we're doing today, Dom, because I've been a fan. I've been following the Rick Grosso sales process for decades. And Paradigm Vendo is based on that, but it's just structured a little bit differently. So what I hope we can accomplish today is to take the 11-step Grosso selling system and see how it works hand in glove and blends in with the 5-step system that's in Paradigm Vendo. So excited to do that. I think it's going to be great information for people.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more. And I know this is something you've actually mentioned to me for quite a while. And we filmed a few workshops together, and it's always an honor to have you share your wisdom. I think I mentioned on our podcast, you and Rick were together traveling the world at closers camps for decades. And I think you told me that you really didn't even miss one of these events like ever. You were there for almost all these events. So empowering people with technology and sales training has been something near and dear for a long time. So now we talked about the integration of our 11-step system with the 5-step Paradigm system. Do you mind just kind of outlining what are the 5 key steps of the Paradigm system that is built into the software?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. And maybe when I'm done with that, you can go ahead and mention what the 11 steps are in the Grosso system. So with Vendo, what the 5 steps are is, first off, assess needs. Not a surprise. Although, I think maybe we'll have some discussion along these lines. Even though it's not a surprise, there are a lot of salespeople ignoring it.
Yeah, we did a whole workshop on that for that reason, because it is, I'm constantly seeing organizations to this day that do zero needs assessment, no survey at all. So yeah, it's definitely something worth mentioning, because you never know. You can't assume that.
You're right.
We would hopefully assume that you're doing a needs assessment, but as we'll show you, Paradigm Vendo makes it kind of foolproof to be able to execute it. So.
Yep, so that's step number 1. From there, it evolves to inspect and measure. You know, that's certainly a process we all go through. And then you're in a great position after you get those 2 steps done, because you now have information to work with to get to the 3rd step in the process, which is present solutions. In other words, if you go into that, here's what a lot of people do, Dominic, and you know this better than me. they start there.
Yep.
They go into a home and immediately got their samples out and telling the homeowner what they think they need without any feedback from the consumer at all, and inspecting the situation and letting them know what's going on, having the prospect point out to the salesperson what they don't like about various things. So without the first two steps, the third step really is not as effective as it could be. So present solutions, number 3. And then once we get that, we love to say we're going to take this prospect on a guided shopping experience.
Yeah.
And that's a step we call configure products. So you've now done what you need discovery-wise. You've determined the solutions. You showed them, the solutions that make sense based on what you've learned together. Now let's go ahead and configure this and let the homeowner build their own project. And that makes all the difference in the world. And once you get done with that, then you go on to the 5th step, which is the quote step. And that's where we're going to present price properly and wrap this thing up. So that's it, 5 steps.
Yeah, very simple. And you're turning the whole selling system into a very simple, easy to follow paint by numbers system, which is something that Rick Grosso always talked about. It makes success and performance replicatable, duplicatable, predictable. And even if you're not a natural born salesperson, if you can literally follow even basic instructions, just let this roadmap to the sale and Paradigm guide you through it. It makes it a lot easier to have consistent levels of performance. And I just kind of want to talk about one of the things you were mentioning, how there's salespeople out there that are presenting solutions before doing any discovery or going through the inspection. They lead with that. This is a quote that Rick always talked about as well. He said, diagnosis without prognosis is malpractice. So let's first determine what we're dealing with, what we're working with, before we start talking about how we're going to help them solve the problems. If you truly have no clue what problems or challenges they're actually dealing with in reality, if you're just basing it all on your assumptions, you're really doing that customer a disservice. That is the malpractice side of things. Imagine going to the hospital because you think something's wrong, and they immediately just start talking about the surgery they're going to perform on you before they do any formal diagnosis and try to determine what's actually going on. So I'm sure you'd have more peace of mind if they did a detailed discovery, did a detailed inspection first to truly pinpoint what you're dealing with, and then after that, let's talk about what solutions are available to you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
let's talk about our 11-step system.
Good.
So of course, with Grosso University, we lead with preparation, because by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And there's a lot of things we can do with Paradigm Vendo leading up to an appointment to prepare with the information and data it provides. Then we got our introduction step, which a lot of people talk about as the door approach when we first enter the home and greet them, how we're setting the tone. Then of course the needs assessment, the survey, the discovery, pave out that roadmap to the sale. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, and it's often the road that leads to nowhere. Then the measure and inspection. So hopefully you can already start to see how the Paradigm sales process and our system blend together perfectly. And then getting into the solutions, of course, we talk about the company story, how our company can be the ultimate solution for them to furnish and install this and exceed their expectations. Then we go through evolution, which is essentially taking them on that shopping spree, going through the industry options, and funneling it down to our product, service, and solution as being the ultimate way to solve their problems. Then we go through our product presentation, the Masterful product presentation, and at the end of the day, funneling this whole decision down to affordability is the only thing standing in the way. Then we get into the closing sequence, and our closing sequence has a couple different steps, which is the retail close, qualification, the major close, and the button-up. And as we'll break down in this workshop, the way Paradigm and Vendo is uniquely designed with their 5-step system, it perfectly integrates with our 11-step system without either of us really having to change the flow of anything.
That's correct.
It's truly a match made in heaven. So I appreciate you walking through that. So I just kind of want to ask, in a general sense, why do you feel that nowadays sales process by itself is not enough, where having technology kind of forward-facing at the kitchen table is something that these homeowners are expecting, and you've even said they're kind of demanding it nowadays, right?
Well, they are. If they have an investment counselor over, they're not using a legal pad and writing out all this stuff there. They have an iPad and they're presenting their solution that way. And that's what people are expecting from home improvement companies now. They're not expecting that big fat presentation book, pitch book, so to speak, with a bunch of disorganized papers and all that. They're really expecting technology. And when you think about it, Dominic, people are buying stuff online. They're buying Amazon and things like that. And when we get into this guided shopping experience, I think it'll be clear how this kind of replicates that and gives people the feel of what they're used to. and not have an experience that they go, oh, that seems like 1970 stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why people do expect it.
Well, and I think I heard you talk about in one of your presentations that, I mean, you go anywhere nowadays, you're dealing with technology. You go to the coffee shop and they don't really collect payment. You know, they don't take your card as much anymore. They just hang the iPad out there and you're making your purchases right on the device. And
Yep.
I mean, especially any high level investment you're making, you're typically going to be dealing with technology, and there's a certain level of professionalism and legitimacy that goes along with that. I think I remember way back when you were telling a story of when you had this little small computer device or this little printer
Yep.
that could print out an actual receipt. And even that alone, that it was coming from a device and printing out a receipt, it gave a different level of legitimacy to the investment people are making. Of course, what we're talking about with Paradigm Vendo is completely next level.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about what you all are doing there is you're constantly innovating, making it more impressive. So I always talk about the Brian Tracy quote that price only becomes a determining factor when you fail to differentiate. When you're empowered with, you know, obviously the sales process, but the supercharge that Paradigm Vendo can give, and customers are seeing how you're leveraging technology to go through the discovery and the inspection, as we'll talk about, it's a way you can set yourself apart from any other chuck in the truck that's just going in the house, licking their finger and being like, okay, that'll be 10 grand.
Right.
So we definitely want to focus on that. So of course, our first step in the process is preparation.
Yep.
So I kind of want to talk about that briefly. Of course, at Grosso University, there's a lot of things that we train salespeople to do to prepare physically and mentally for a day of lead running. Of course, make sure you get a good night's sleep. Make sure you're well rested, that you do your affirmations, invest in yourself each morning, whether you're gonna read from a book or you're gonna get a little workout routine in, get the heart rate up, get the blood flow going, you want full clarity of thought. Dress like a professional, don't dress like a bum. You wanna dress congruent to the quality and professionalism I wanna portray to the prospect. And do some research on your sales encounter, right? So there's things we can do, and that's kind of breaking down our Sales Warrior morning. But what are some things that Paradigm allows salespeople to do to better prepare for the appointment before they even arrive?
Yeah. Well, you know, what you can see on screen right now is I'm on the appointment screen. So
Yep.
in other words, when a salesperson logs into Vendo, this is what they're presented with, their appointments for the day. And as you can see there, we have some things listed that might be useful to the salesperson. There's other bits of data that are also available, and different sales managers will make decisions of what they want available to a salesperson and so forth. But with technology, there's all sorts of things you can know before you go in with data to put you in the right frame of mind and the right understanding about this particular prospect.
Yeah.
So those are certainly some of the things we can do.
So it looks like we can have an idea in like, okay, how many beds, how many bathrooms? So
Yep.
of course, if I'm a one-day bath company, that could be useful. You got the, I'm assuming that's the value of the home, the property
Correct.
value.
Yep.
The year the house was built, how big the house is. These are things that are highly impressive because when I used to be in the survey, and of course we'll talk about that, but knowing this data, I would be at the kitchen table with John and Mary Smith. I'd be like, oh, John and Mary, let me ask you, is this house, let's say around 2,500 square feet? And I got the number right there, but
Yeah.
I just say it kind of generally, and they're like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. It's just really impressive. We're like, okay, so the house is around 2,500 square feet, you know, original windows from the 1973,
Yeah.
the year the house was built. I'm finding that a lot of homeowners are facing energy costs ranging anywhere from $200 to $300 a month, sometimes even higher. Is that what you've been experiencing as well? But the way you kind of, you know, go through asking these questions, showing that you did your research, it's highly impressive. And even knowing, like, in some cases, you can know they've been living there for about 10 years. So according to my notes, John and Mary, you've been in this home for what, roughly around 10 years? Is that accurate? And they're like, how did you know that? Well, again, we like to do our research so we can provide the best service that we can, right? This is how we set ourselves apart from everybody else. We want to know what we're getting into. And then you can obviously continue the conversation. But knowing this information ahead of time allows the salesperson to really kind of role play out in advance how you're going to navigate the sales process and solve their problems, which is, again, really, really priceless to be able to do. So I've done my preparation work. I got my iPad ready. I already got kind of things moving in the right direction. So then we get into the door approach, right? We're doing our introduction. We're doing our formal greeting. I'm assuming a lot of salespeople, when they go up to the house, you guys are preaching, don't walk up with all your samples and supplies. Nowadays, they can walk up pretty much with just an iPad
Yep.
and a couple tools to do an inspection, right? So you're not having to walk up with all this paperwork and stuff. It's nice, clean, and professional. But of course, our door approach, gain entry into the house. We do a lot of training on how to greet the homeowner, how to overcome resistance at the door, overcome any potential objections that the homeowner throws at you. But then we sit down, do a formal introduction at the kitchen table to set the tone for the sales encounter. Is there any other creative ways you're seeing people using Paradigm Vendo early on in the appointment, like between the introduction and the discovery phase, so the homeowner can start to see the technology that we're coming with and essentially kind of kickstarting the sales encounter?
Yeah, there is. I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. Now, in a typical situation, that continue button you're seeing right now would say start.
Yeah.
So you're in the home, got this thing up, you're ready to start the appointment, you go ahead and click on start. In this case, it's continue. And it's going to take us to the 5-step area. And along the lines of what you just mentioned, I think one thing that's critical when you begin a presentation, maybe even before you're really officially diving into the assess needs session, is making sure that homeowner knows what to expect.
Yep.
Because they've not been through this before, probably. And if they have, maybe it was a bad experience, who knows? So I think it's, I was listening to a podcast a few years ago. A gentleman's name was Kyle Hunt. I don't know if you know Kyle, but he has a podcast as well. And he mentioned what he called 5 magic words to begin pretty much every presentation. And it just made a lot of sense to me. And here's what those magic words are. You sit down with a homeowner and you start by saying, this is how we work. And then you let them know what's coming.
Yep.
And in this case, as you can see on screen, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get to know each other a little bit. We're going to assess needs in your home with you, things such as that. It's going to evolve to taking a tour of your home, doing some inspection and measuring, learning more about your home. Once we do that, we'll be in a position to, first off, number one, determine, is there a reason for us to be here? Because sometimes maybe not. If you discover there that, they're renting and they're going to move to San Francisco in a month, you're probably not going to want to carry on the presentation.
Right.
So beyond that, then you're off telling me we're going to present the solutions to them that make the most sense to them. And then we're going to go on a guided shopping experience together, and you're going to build your project. And finally, we'll give you probably what you're mostly looking for is what this project is going to cost investment-wise. So that's what you can expect as we go forward. So we think it's important to do that right up front. This is how we work, those 5 magic words.
I love this because I just think about the old days where I would enter a house and I would lay this huge pitch book on the table and the homeowner would be like, we're not going through this whole thing, are we? Right? It would terrify them right in the beginning. So for you to be able to enter a home and make it look so simple, painless, and easy for them to get what they truly want, which is the quote at the end of the day, it's going to lower their fear, it's going to lower their resistance, and it's really going to set the tone for the entire sales encounter.
All right, let's dive into the steps. We'll dive into each one of these briefly, get the idea across, give you a glimpse of how Vendo works with that. Dominic will also chime in on the 11 steps and where they're positioned within these 5 steps. So let's begin with the assess needs area.
Yeah, needs assessment. So again, as we talked about early on in this workshop already, this is a commonly skipped part of the sales encounter, and salespeople, to their detriment, are shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. Because ultimately, we talk about building rapport, right, with the homeowner. We know that building rapport is important. I just did an entire educational workshop on why building rapport matters. But just think to yourself, before I am in a position to recommend any solution to anyone, there's a few things I must do. One is I must build a foundation of trust with my prospect. If they don't trust you, they're never going to take your recommendations to heart, and they're going to resist you, fight it tooth and nail the entire time. And also, I want to make a connection with them, get on their level. So there's a lot of things that we talk about in sales with, mirroring and matching and building rapport. But ultimately, it's finding common ground, getting on their level, making a connection with them. That way, when I'm guiding them down the sales process, they're far more likely to follow my lead. So if I were to summarize what we're trying to achieve here, and Paradigm Vendo makes it so easy, is to get to know them, find commonality, figure out what's truly going on, with the motivations for being here, and of course, building rapport and establishing that foundation of trust. So then when I get into making the recommendations, I've established a target, I know precisely where we're aiming, so I can personalize this whole experience. So you talk about this all the time. People more than ever before are demanding, or at least desiring a personalized experience, if I have no idea who these people are, what's important to them, what fears they may have, if I haven't first made that connection, I'm always going to be shooting blindfolded in the dark. So that's really what we're trying to do here. So again, I can talk about the needs assessment for hours, but what are some ways that Paradigm Vendo here now makes going through this discovery a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable for all parties involved?
Yeah, essentially it can be kind of a prompting device, and you're probably not going to want to be sitting here typing every word that the conversation goes through. But what a tool like this can do is make sure the salespeople are hitting these steps. Now, here's the danger here. If you're not careful, the needs assessment can turn into an interrogation.
Yes.
And that's counterproductive. So it's got to be a conversation.
That's right.
A true conversation with that homeowner. But just a couple questions I think that do make sense is, hey, before we get anything about the project, tell me a little bit about your house. How long you been here? What do you love about your house? And get them talking like that. And it's kind of a different tone to getting right to the point, like, hey, how bad do your windows suck and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe a question like, so what made you feel like now was the right time to take a look at this? Does that seem like an answer to that might help you down the road in the presentation? It certainly would. And how about the third question, and we'll stop here for now. If anything worries you about doing a project like that, what is it?
Yeah.
And you learn something with these kind of questions and get that conversation going. And it's going to put you in a great position to shape your presentation. I think, Dominic, and you've worked with a lot of salespeople and certainly a lot of very high paid salespeople. I got to believe the ones that are the highest paid and most successful are the ones that nail this.
Yeah, 100%.
They understand this.
Yeah, you cannot close if you do not open properly. And this, what we're doing is we're opening the sales encounter and paving out that roadmap to the sale. The thing I love about those first three questions is you're already getting them into an emotional state of mind, right? We know that people buy an emotion, but to your point earlier, a lot of salespeople just go through this as an interrogation, and it's more of the logic of it all. You got to get people to open up. I always define a prospect like an iceberg. 80% of what I need to get to the root of is beneath the surface. If I don't ask the correct questions, it's not just about asking questions. Am I asking them correctly, using the right language? Because you talk about, what do you love about it? How do you feel? What do you worry? These are emotional-based questions that get them truly focusing on how they feel about these scenarios. And you're going to get a lot of very useful information. And also, these are the questions that make them feel special, make them feel heard and understood, like you genuinely care. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I was joking about this the other day. I was doing a training. There's actually a secret to how you can show a homeowner that you genuinely care.
Yeah.
Actually genuinely care. That's the secret. Do you truly care about helping your prospect solve a problem? When you ask questions and frame them in this way, those are those little things that an amateur salespeople or salesperson are simply not going to do. But if you don't get the homeowner to start opening up early in the sales encounter, it becomes very difficult for them to open up later on.
Yeah.
So because they're already closed off, they already feel like they got interrogated, now they're going to be fighting you tooth and nail the entire time. So the whole goal here, again, this is all about also making that connection and having deep understanding in who you're dealing with. Because based on how they answer these three questions, that's going to allow me to start adapting my communication style and essentially blend in like a chameleon, so I can essentially mirror and match exactly what's important and meaningful to that prospect. Because again, rapport building, it's about trust, it's about respect, but it's also about connection. So that's why I absolutely love the way this is laid out. It makes all the sense in the world. And of course, how long do you expect to own and live in this home? This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. A lot of times, I already know how long they've been living there, but I used to ask this question the following way, and I'll try not to be too long-winded here. But so John and Mary, when I go into homes, there's usually three different types of homeowners I meet with. One is the homeowners looking to update their windows in their home, and they said, Dominic, I want these to be the last windows I'm ever gonna own. This is my forever home. They're literally gonna carry me out of here in a wooden box, and I don't wanna ever have to do this again. And we love those customers because, again, we stand behind our products for life, and we know they're gonna absolutely have a lifetime of personal enjoyment from our solution. Now, sometimes the exact opposite. Sometimes they drive up to the home and they literally have a for sale sign in the yard, and the only reason they're looking to update their windows is because of resale value. Because everybody knows one of the best things you can do to add value to your home is update the windows. I say the most common, though, is usually a combination of the two. It's a homeowner like yourselves to say, I'm gonna be living here for a long time. I'm not exactly sure how long, maybe 5-10 years. So I want something that's going to last and stand the test of time, but I'm also looking for something that could potentially add value to my home if and when we're looking to sell. So let me ask you, are you moving tomorrow? Is this your forever home, or is it probably the combination of the two? And most people will funnel themselves into a combination of the two, which is really powerful, because now this helps tie into all the things I'm going to sell them on. Quality, longevity, personal enjoyment while they're here, but also resale value if and when they decide to move. So
You bet.
it really tees up the presentation correctly.
You know, this particular step, or skill, if you want to call it that, as I mentioned a bit ago, is really what separates the true professional from an average salesperson. And you know, I know you're great friends, as I am, with our friends at Cyril,
Yeah.
the people that record presentations.
Absolutely.
And I've seen some of their research, plus some other organizations' research, 25,000 sales presentations to determine the ideal talk-listen ratio between the prospect and the salesperson.
That's right.
53% prospect, the remaining salesperson, 47 salesperson. And I challenge everybody that's listening to this particular workshop to ask yourself the question, is that what's going on in my salespeople's presentations? Probably not.
Almost never.
And that takes skill. That takes practice and skill to turn a needs assessment into a meaningful conversation.
That's right.
So yes, we better stop here and move on.
I just wanted to add one thing. It's not necessarily to do with the survey, but it ties exactly to what you're talking about. So have you ever heard about the pyramid of learning?
No.
So there's this pyramid of learning that essentially shows how people retain information. Okay, so your prospects will retain 5% of what you say. So if I'm a salesperson going like this, they're only retaining 5% of it. Now, do you want to try closing somebody with only 5% of the information? They'll retain 10% of what they read. So if they're reading words on a slide or a presentation, they'll retain 10% of that. They'll retain 30% of what they see in an audio-visual format, which we're going to talk about how Paradigm Vendo helps with videos and audio-visual and stuff, interactive. But you look at the difference right there alone. Going from 5% of what you say to 30% of an audio-visual, that's a big jump.
Yep.
They'll retain 50% of what they discuss.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Do we have back and forth dialogue? Are we engaged in discussion, right? And then if you want to take it a step further, they retain 75% of what they do. So when they're physically and mentally involved, actually hands-on doing things. And the pinnacle of it all, they'll retain 90% of what they teach.
Oh,
So
that's a good one.
if I can get a prospect to actually sell things back to me and teach me, now I'm up to 90% retention. So going along with what Tim just said, this whole thing has to be back and forth dialogue. The talk ratio needs to be balanced. And if you're a superstar, they're talking more than you, as you just alluded to. That's highly impressive.
Great segue to the next step. When
Absolutely.
you talk about them teaching the salesperson, inspect and measure.
Yep, so this is where a lot of salespeople, I don't even know how salespeople are doing this, but they're just going around and inspecting by themselves. The homeowner's not getting involved.
Right.
So we want to make sure before we go ahead and do the inspection that we have a transition statement that essentially invites the homeowner to take you on the guided tour through their house. This is kind of what we're talking about. They're teaching you. They know the house better than you more often than not. But, you know, especially in the window game, I would say, you know, Tim, obviously when we're dealing with windows, we don't do an almost fitting window. We do an exact custom fitting window. And the benefit to you is, think of every opening as like a blank canvas. And there's some window styles I can offer to you that are, you know, super high end, super fancy. There's some that are more economical. It's my job really to find the most economical way to solve your problems while I'm here. And it'd really be helpful if we were going along this inspection. That way when I'm going and making recommendations, we're all on the same page. It allows me to quote the job to the exact to the penny for you. So you know the house better than I do, Tim. Why don't you go ahead and show me your best window and we'll start from there.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so you take them on the guided tour. So now, of course, we talk about salespeople that should have, if they're inspecting windows, you should have things like your thermal infrared thermometer. Some salespeople have thermal cameras, which is super impressive. Again, always you can set yourself apart. Of course, a tape measure or a laser measure. But Paradigm Vendo supercharges the inspection, and this is some of the stuff I'm probably most excited about with what you guys are doing and what you're building. So what are some ways you're seeing sales professionals leverage the power of Paradigm to enhance the inspection experience?
Yeah, what we're seeing on screen right now is you're seeing kind of a completed inspection. Of course, when you come in here, you know, cold, these are blank, and you just click the plus sign.
Yeah.
And then it takes you to a place where that's where measurements go in, the style window, and so forth and so on. But what you're talking about is technology, and what that is, you can take the iPad You scan that thing, and bang, all the measurements are captured, put right where they belong, and you carry on with your inspect and measure step. And that's impressive for homeowners
Oh
to
my
see
gosh.
something like that.
I'm just trying to even picture myself in the homeowner's shoes. There's a salesperson coming in the home, and the last salesperson I talked to was, again, lick their finger, went like this, and then this professional comes in with their technology, and they're scanning the room, and the video I saw, it was literally doing a 3D rendering of the actual kitchen space and the window openings and all the measurements. And I think you said these measurements are gonna be enough where people can quote the job properly, but you still wanna have a final measure and inspection done exact, for the custom built windows. But how impressive is that? And all this data is saved and stored, and when you do the final inspection report at the end, you're gonna have all the measurements, you can put in the conditions, and then all the pictures and stuff of everything you scan, right?
Yeah, it's very cool. You mentioned something that's being created in the background throughout the presentation. It's called an inspection report. And that's something that's just gathering everything we've learned, like in a needs assessment, in the inspect and measure step. Like you mentioned, the conditions. And if there's a particular condition, like the homeowner says, yeah, I get a little draft through this window. Along with listing that in the inspection report, it gives them a paragraph summary of what that typically means to them. So it's very, very useful. So this is the inspect and measure step. It's pretty cool. When you get done with it, you pretty much have a list like this of all the, in this case, windows that we're considering. Obviously, Vendo will also handle other types of products like siding, roofing, things such as that. But this is going to be used later on in the presentation to help the homeowner build their project.
Right.
So this is a fun step. So let's carry on.
The inspection, we always say we need to create awareness, create a sense of urgency, all this stuff, but also you're just establishing yourself as a trusted advisor. And I find that I can really solidify myself as a professional, as a trusted advisor when I'm coming in with technology like this. Again, it's just like the difference between going to the doctor and they just like check your temperature and they're trying to diagnose you for what's going on versus people that leverage technology to truly get to the root of what's going on. So yeah, very, very impressive. So I've created a sense of urgency. And of course, at the end of the inspection, we want to make sure we're transitioning from that step to the next. So we say, John and Mary, here's the inspection report. Here's everything that we saw. Just to recap, I can definitely see why we're here, and I'm sure you'd agree, whether it be with us or any of our fine competition, getting these windows updated is certainly something we can benefit from sooner than later. And then we get a handshake agreement. I appreciate the opportunity to help you with that. You're gonna absolutely love what I have to show you. And here's the good news. I know I can design a solution you'll love, and I know I can make it affordable. So let's go back to the kitchen table. We're gonna get into the present solutions section, show you how easy we can solve this problem. We'll have that quote worked up in no time. So it's simple, painless, and easy. Segue from one step to the next. So now the present solutions. So you can literally build in anything you can imagine into Paradigm Vendo, right? So anything to enhance your company story, anything to enhance your product demo. So let's talk about the company story. Of course, the goal here is to build a strong case for your business as the trusted organization to do the work. What are some things that people are building into this company story on Paradigm Vendo?
Well, what I have on screen right now is essentially an integration with our friends at Engage, which many people use.
Oh yeah.
And a tool like Engage does a great job with this stuff to present it in a very nice way. And it's all seamless. You notice I just tapped that and bang, it opened it right up. And didn't feel like you had to go to another piece of software and all that kind of stuff. So you, as Dom mentioned, you can have anything you need in here. If you need a PDF of a given product, it's all here at your fingertips. So again, imagine that big fat pitch book that has every brochure of every product. It's all right here electronically. For example, our friends at Project Map It, which I think is a tool everybody should use. And this is a tool that when you're sitting in a home, you can say, hey, let's take a look at some neighbors that we've done business with. And then you tap on any one of these and you can see a before and after picture of the job.
Yeah, the social proof you're building with that is undeniable. And as unreasonable as it is, the number one motivator of all human beings' decisions is keeping up with the Joneses. It's like social proof. So when they see all these projects you've done with people who are just like them in their local community, again, it's going to lower their fear of making the wrong decision, increase their desire to want to move forward with your company as well.
You bet.
Yeah, so really, really impactful. So I just wanted to relate to what you're talking about, not just even the pitch book thing. I had salespeople early on when we first started using technology where, we were using Engage, but then they would also have videos on their phone. They would have pictures printed off. They would have all these different resources they had to pull from to be able to tell the story they wanted to tell. Now Paradigm Vendo is the complete repository and sales enablement platform that allows you to integrate everything. And that's what I've always been impressed with you guys is you're going out to all these service providers, because these are all different companies, right? And whether it's Destination Motivation, Engage, Project Map It, everything is fully integrated into this one platform now. So again, for a salesperson to truly navigate and deliver the most masterful presentation, learn how to dance with this thing, it gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility to personalize that experience.
You got, of course, your Google reviews are at your fingertips.
Yep.
How about some price conditioning with remodeling's cost versus value? Things like that are just ready for you to use whenever you feel you need to use them in this particular presentation.
Yep.
So yeah, you can kind of use Vendo as a launch pad for your physical product demonstration. You just click on our windows, and in this case, it's got an Engage presentation about the windows you sell.
Yep.
Then you have your sample, and you just carry on. So this is where you make these folks or help these folks fall in love with your company and your product.
Absolutely. I just want to talk about something that we talked about before we got into the studio here. There's a lot of people that kind of lead with the company's story as like step one when they're at the kitchen table. And certainly you can have success doing that. The reason why is we lead with the discovery and the inspection before the company's story is I need to make sure that I'm fully clear on what they're dealing with, what problems and challenges they're facing, and also create as much awareness as I can of new problems and challenges they maybe never knew they had, because I'm starting to build a case that we're detail-oriented, that we're trusted, that we are professionals. But also when I'm going over my company story now at the solutions phase, I can tie back to all those things and educate them how we're gonna be the best overall solution to help solve those problems. But it gave me the chance to really separate myself and differentiate. So by the time I even get into the company story, I already have trust built, trust established. I'm not just a stranger that just came in and started pitching. A lot of salespeople just get right into pitching their solution right away. So don't do that. Make sure you invest the time, pave out the roadmap to the sale first. Then when you get into the company story and the solution phase, you're far more likely to have a receptive audience. But I just want to say, after the company story, you want to make this thing so masterful that at the end I can get a strong commitment. That John and Mary, first of all, can you appreciate why thousands of families just like you have trusted Grosso University over everyone else? And lastly, if we can design a solution you absolutely love, and Paradigm will help us do that, and we can exceed your expectations on affordability, so far would Grosso University have earned the right to ask for your business.
One thing that's cool about this, Dominic, as you can see here, companies could have dozens and some hundreds of resources that they want available to their salespeople. So in order to make this somewhat organized, we got these filters up on top that they can put various resources in categories and you can get a direct access to them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because it could be overwhelming too, right? If you overdo it, you have like 1,000 different tabs on here. But yeah, you can customize. The thing I love is every company can customize this platform for exactly what they need. Yeah, the warranty stuff, boom, right there. So here's what I love as well though, Tim, because we talked about the pitch books and stuff. We also used to have what we call the kill book, which essentially was another 3-ring binder that had all the estimates and proposals and warranties from all of our competition. Right in here, we could have a whole tab, just industry options section, and that's kind of like our kill book. Obviously, I'm not going to label a kill book on here, but essentially give the homeowner the opportunity to go on the shopping spree and look at the industry options. Because at the end of the day, I want the homeowner to be equipped with enough information where they feel and believe they are able to give their informed consent on the matter. That's really what we're trying to get at here. Is do they truly have enough information where the close becomes a natural conclusion and they can sleep soundly at night that they did their due diligence and didn't just jump at the first solution that was offered to them. But Paradigm gives them an unprecedented opportunity to really build all those tools and resources in that you want. So assuming I've done the masterful presentation, of course, sold my company, took them on the shopping spree, presented my masterful product presentation, now we're gonna get into the configured products, right?
Yeah, this is where you really do take them on a guided shopping experience. You together settled on, in the present solution step, a solution that they love. You've done a great job doing that, and you did that based on what you learned in the first 2 steps. Now, let's go ahead and figure out things like colors, grids, whatever the case may be. And as you can see here, all those measurements came over to the configure step from the inspect and measure step. And I have these already configured. If I didn't, this little pencil icon would be a plus sign, and I would click on that, but it's currently already been configured, so I'm gonna click on edit. And as you can see here, here's where we kind of replicate that Amazon shopping experience with that homeowner. Hey, let's talk about some different colors that might be available to you. So you can select the interior color, the exterior color. How about grids? You want to take a look at colonial grids, prairie grids. How about an exterior view, interior view?
Yep.
You know, if you want a little bigger picture of that, you can do that and get back there. So this is where they're shopping. And you know what? Something very interesting here. And you see in the upper right here, Dominic?
Yes.
There's a price shown. Now, that's a preference. Some people say, oh no, I don't want to be building this price as we go and having them see that going on. And then I'm going to present my price at the end as a grand total. And I get that philosophy, but there are some people that prefer this because the homeowner can kind of see this going, oh, what's the difference in cost between grids and no grids and stuff like that. But they can see this kind of building when you're going through each one of these lines. So in their mind, they're already building their price. So it's not this huge sticker shock and surprise to them at the end. So that's just a preference. It's a function we put in here. All you do is you long hold on it and it can get rid of it. So you don't have to use it if you don't want to.
Yeah, the cool thing about that, you know, a lot of times you'll get homeowners that will try to ask, you know, how much is it going to cost or what's the price? And they'll do it prematurely. And with this tool, you can honestly say that, you know, John and Mary, I'm just as anxious to see how much it's going to cost as you, because ultimately you're the one that's going to design your window project, as we'll walk through every little element, you know, whether it's the grids or the wood grain or the type of glass or the different installation extras or accessories is going to add to the overall investment. I'm going to, as your guidance counselor, kind of guide you through the decision-making process. But you'll see when we get to the fun part of actually designing this project and taking you on the shopping spree, that's where this whole thing will come together and you'll have full clarity as to what to expect.
You bet.
So really, really powerful.
And certainly, you know, as I mentioned, there can be products other than windows in here. You can have siding in here and things such as that too.
Yep.
So this is the guided shopping experience, and you're letting them build their project. And that's totally a different methodology than what's been used in our industry forever. What's been used in our industry forever is the salesperson dictating everything along the way.
Yes.
Not the best way to go.
No, not
in
nowadays.
market.
Again,
No.
people want the ability to personalize it and customize it. Now, I just want to talk about what really separates Paradigm apart, because, you know, if no one's heard of Paradigm Vendo before watching this educational workshop, what is one of those things about Paradigm that makes building out this entire platform a lot easier than it could be with other platforms? Because, you know, there's some platforms out there where people maybe gone through the pain of taking years to program all the data from, because what was it? I think you said there's like trillions of combinations sometimes with some of these window manufacturers and all the accessories. So how can one expedite kind of building out a platform like this with the power of Paradigm?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's really Paradigm's heritage. Paradigm as a company has been in business for over 20 years. It started with a window manufacturer up in northern Wisconsin that wanted a tool that could configure products. So they built this enterprise software. Or actually, the person that had the idea at this window company decided to do it on his own and to start a Paradigm. So what it is we have all the, we call them product catalogs. We have all the product catalogs for about 70% of all window manufacturers, 50% of all door manufacturers already available to us because they use Paradigm's enterprise software called Omni. If you go into a Home Depot or a Menards or a Lowe's and you use any of their computers in there to configure products that you might want to buy, that's all Paradigm stuff. So when I met the guys at Paradigm about 12 years ago, I found out that we didn't do the same thing because their CEO called me and said, hey, we're from Wisconsin too. It looks like you sell the same things we do. You know, what's going on? And he didn't like that idea. So we got together and we determined, no, we don't do that at all. Back then I was with MarketSharp, a CRM product that was sold to window contractors and dealers. Paradigm sold their product to the window manufacturers. And I told the CEO of Paradigm back then, I says, wow, we tried to do what you've done with your product catalog building 3 times and threw it away every time because it's so complicated, we couldn't do it. I said, if we can figure out a way to take what you have in your enterprise product, a product called Omni, bring it into an in-home presentation tool, flip a switch and say, hey, dealer that sells XYZ brand windows, you're good to go.
Yeah,
we got something special.
It's a dream come true.
Yeah, so I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, that's unusual because, I mean, I've seen the pain and trauma that some of these owners have gone through where they're working on building out a platform like this for 2 years and they can't get it and they just quit. I mean, think of all the time and pain and effort, like all the investment they made to get nothing out of it. So if I can switch over to something like Paradigm and all the data's already there, you just gotta pick which program you wanna get on board with and they turn it on. And then of course you adjust it for your pricing, your margins, your market and territory, any other extras you want. But my goodness, can that significantly accelerate and expedite the whole process. So just kind of recapping so far what we've achieved. Of course, Paradigm certainly can help you prepare for a day of lead running, give you priceless data and information. It can help you set the tone for the entire sales encounter right out of the get-go by kind of showing the homeowner very simple, paint by numbers fashion, exactly how we're going to navigate this meeting, and it's highly impressive. Then of course the discovery, the needs assessment, just walking the homeowner and the salesperson through in conversational, emotional style, exactly how we're going to custom tailor this and gather the information we need so we can provide exceptional service to them, because it's really our goal is to serve them, right? Then the inspection process, there's all kinds of technology and tools that Paradigm provides to significantly supercharge the whole inspection experience. And one of my favorite elements is that inspection report, that summary you get, because it's super dialed in, it's super polished, and it really is something we can tie back to throughout the entire sales encounter. Then of course, all the solutions from the company's story to evolution, videos, visuals, engaged presentation, all this stuff fully integrated into one platform. So again, it makes it so a salesperson literally has to go out of their way to be creative to mess it up, really. But all the tools you could ever dream of are now housed in one thing, so you don't have to have all these different tools and devices. Then we go ahead and have the homeowner go through a shopping spree. They configure and design exactly what they want, the way they want it. And the desire at this point is at peak level, right? And that's what we want. Yep. We want them to be excited, we want them to desire, and of course they're thinking to themselves, how much? So now we need to transition into the quote, right? So what are some things that we can configure in terms of the quote tool, the proposal tool, to make the closing experience a lot more streamlined?
Yeah, so I just clicked on the quote tile. So we've done a configuration and they settled on this particular color, these grids and all that. And you're getting pretty much a summary of what you just talked about with all the windows you measured and everything like that. Yep. You can have as much or as little detail as you want. If you have an engineer there, show details, and there you go, you got all that kind of stuff. So you can go on and on with that. So then what's going on is you can also integrate promotions into Vendo, so that's cool. You would select whatever promotions you want to offer that person. Here we got a 10% neighborhood promotion and a seniors discount. And you also got financing built in here. Yep. So we can talk about that a little more in a second. Yep. And what's important right now is how you present this price. You know, and Dominic, I'm sure you're as flabbergasted as me to run into people still today that when they present a price, they just present the price and say, here it is.
Yeah, and there's no build up to it at all, no overview, no recap. So,
or no options.
Yeah, no options,
You know, I think the average American home right now has at their disposal about $8,000.
Yep.
Now, most of our projects are more than that.
Yeah.
So when you think about that logically, you're going into that home, and if you don't have ways for them to buy that you're going to offer them other than write a check, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Yeah, the study that I heard recently is, you know, over 67% of America cannot afford an unexpected $500 expense.
Yeah.
So how many people could afford a $5,000 or $10,000? Very few.
Yep. So here's the way we like to present price in Vendo. I'm going to go ahead and click on pricing options. And what it's going to do is it's going to present the investment.
Love it.
The total investment there, what it includes and all that. But then I'm going to click on your savings options, and it's going to take off the promos and discounts that we had. So the total is $16,548. We have a minimum of a 10% down payment. You know, and you talk to them about that, and they say, oh, we can do $3,000. So that's in there as well. And then you configure it to present options for people.
Yep.
The cash option. If you want to pay cash, we'll take it.
Of course.
But based on the financing we selected previously in a previous screen, there's your monthly investment. Or if you want to take advantage of our same as cash option, we got that. And Dominic, have you ever been to like a restaurant that has a self-service counter and you go ahead and order your stuff and then they turn the iPad around to you and what do they want you to do?
Well, add a tip or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's called a physical action close.
Yeah, and you feel compelled to.
You do. You do, and that's what's going on here.
Yep.
You got one where you turn this around and you say which one makes most sense to you. So it's kind of a different way to close.
Yeah.
You know, and does that always work where they say, oh yeah, 3 options, I'm just going to pick one here? No, maybe an objection will come out here and things such as that. So you still got to handle that, which is part of your 11-step process. But this is how Vendo handles presenting price.
Well, the thing I love about this, and first of all, I mean, any company can customize this to basically present promotions the way they want, how they want, and you know the different monthly investment programs that you want displayed based on what lenders you go through. So the whole thing is personalized. So don't take the numbers that are on here as like this is exactly what yours would look like. But to Tim's point, this perfectly tees up what we call the assumptive close. Because what we train on at Grosso University, you don't ask for the business, you assume the business as if they've already said yes. So the fact that I can have everything clearly laid out here, I can just turn this thing over and say which one of these programs works best for you. And they said, well, that one. Okay, I'll just hit the select option button. We'll go ahead and get you started. It makes assuming the order so smooth and easy. And that's really the goal. You know, the thing that, if I were to summarize this, the more simple, painless, and easy you can make it for them to own your product, the higher the probability you have of closing that sale. And that's what Paradigm's trying to do from beginning to end, is make this whole experience simple, painless, and easy, and enjoyable. We want to enjoy spending our money, right? We want to enjoy the whole experience. So with the power of Paradigm, with all the things you can integrate into and the way it walks a salesperson through, and the thing I love about what you just showed is like, when I'm training a salesperson on how to go through the closing sequence, it's going to accelerate that learning curve so much more because it literally is going to walk them through the closing sequence exactly the way we train it. So however you design your closing sequence, you can build that in to Paradigm exactly the way. So all your salespeople are not just shooting from the hip and winging it at the negotiating table, they're following a consistent roadmap each time.
You're right. You know, and to save us some time, at the quote step where they make one of those selections, then what happens within Vendo is it goes and creates a digital contract. You know, based on your contract, what we do is take the contract that the particular home improvement company has, scan it, just merge in all the associated fields that need to be in there, and with all the disclaimers and all that kind of stuff, and it's got an e-signature built in and all that kind of stuff. So it pretty much takes it from beginning to end in the whole process. And once you're done, you result it right in Vendo, and that takes the results right over to your CRM. If there are PDFs, like the proposal and things such as that, the inspection report, those are also going over to your CRM. So it's kind of cool how the process works together. But you know, one thing I know you and I talked about last time I was down here, and I've been on my high horse about this for a few months now, and people are saying, Tim, get off that one. And what it is something I learned years ago from a sales trainer, Mr. Zig Ziglar, and he said this. He said, a confused mind automatically says no. And that's something I think a lot of us have forgot. And we make our presentation so complicated and pricing so complicated. It just makes sense. You and I as a consumer, if we're confused, we're probably not pulling triggers on things.
No.
So that's what a tool like this can do. It can simplify the process. Remember, you're going to start with this is how we work, then you're going to follow that process, and it should be crystal clear to that homeowner so they know what they're doing. But you know what? When you think about it, a tool like this really is useful and helpful for 3 groups of people. The consumer primarily. It's really a great experience for them. The salesperson, great experience for them, and the business owner. It's got a bunch of reporting in here on the back end. In other words, if a guy's not closing maybe up to snuff, let's go into these reports and see what's going on. Oh, I see you spent 30 seconds on needs assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tracking all that kind of stuff, and it's very cool. And by the way, Vendo does integrate with tools like Xero, so when you begin a presentation in Vendo, the presentation recording begins in Xero. So it's kind of neat how those things work seamlessly.
I mean, it's just insane because, again, I had the amazing journey and experience of taking a sales team from 4 million to 100 million, having none of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I just can't help but just reflect back like how much easier my life would have been as a sales coach and trainer, not just from the onboarding experience. Think of how much easier this makes it to train and onboard a salesperson from day one, because everything's right here. I'm gonna spend most of my training to talk about how do you navigate through Paradigm Vendo. But then also afterwards, you just mentioned the accountability measures and the analytics you have to create a culture of accountability, right? Because one thing I used to have to do manually, for example, is I had my salespeople turn in their surveys manually, regardless of the outcome of the sale. Because again, the salesperson would claim, yeah, I did everything properly, I followed the system. I'd be like, let's look at the survey. And sure enough, it was blank. So for you to have that data and visibility on here is great for, like you said, salespeople and owners. But how much more confident would a salesperson be walking into the house armed with the power of Paradigm Vendo? I mean, the confidence just got to be radiating. They have everything they would need. And you can constantly just keep building upon it over time. It never ends, right?
You're right. And I talk to a lot of home improvement companies like you do, and I ask them all, what's your top closer? What's he or she closing at? Well, 62%. I said, what's your low-end closer that you're keeping on staff?
Yeah.
21%. What's your average? Maybe 34%.
Yeah.
And I just look at them and ask them, wouldn't it be great if you could narrow that gap between low end and top end?
Yep.
And they go, yeah, it would. And then they say, how can I do that? And I said, well, it's typically a combination of two things. There is talent involved,
Yep.
but if you're just relying on talent, you're always going to have that big
Huge
spread.
gap. Yep.
But if you bring process into this equation and combine talent, yes, role-playing, training continually, with a process and with technology, you can narrow that gap. And you can have a sales staff that can truly scale, and you're not constantly firing and hiring and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Rick used to preach this all the time, and certainly Paradigm makes this even more clear. The goal is to defy the typical 80-20 rule, right? Where in most sales organizations, 20% of the team is successful and 80% of the team's constantly churning over and over. It's like running on a treadmill, you're getting nowhere. Whereas with something like this, you can truly ensure that 80% of your team is highly successful, top performers, and only 20% of your team maybe needs to be course corrected or turned over periodically over time. So the more you can make success replicatable, duplicatable, predictable, get the systems and processes in place, leveraging technology. So the thing is, if tools like this are available, if you're not going to get on board with this stuff, chances are your competition will, and you're going to have a disadvantage. You simply are. Of course, there's all the talk about AI and all this stuff, but we're just talking about at the kitchen table, how can we make this the best, most seamless and painless experience and enjoyable for both the sales representative and that homeowner? That's really what this is all about. This is about giving you the tools and technology to provide the best possible service for that customer. And they're gonna see that and feel that the second that that salesperson shows up and they're walking them through this decision-making process, how seamless it is.
I think what you like to call this is a masterful presentation.
That's right.
That's the goal.
That's the best close in the world. And
Amen.
Everything that you would need to make it as masterful as possible is truly at your fingertips. With a touch of a button, you have everything you need to make it masterful. So obviously amazing information. I just wanted to ask, kind of finalize this up. If people want more information on Paradigm Vendo or they want a full-blown demo, what's the best way to reach out to Paradigm?
Yeah, just reach out to us online at paradigmvendo.com. Paradigm, little difficult word to spell. You want to give it a go? I ask you this every time.
I got it behind me. I can read it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Paradigm.
All right, good one. So yeah, just reach out to us there and we'll be glad to take a look at it. We'll take you through pretty much the same process.
Yeah.
We'll probably say something at the beginning like, this is how we work.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we'll give you the opportunity to learn together with us, and we'll see whether this is a great solution for you.
So you're giving them a masterful presentation on how they can deliver a masterful presentation.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, it's always an honor and privilege to have you here in the Grosso studio.
Pleasure.
And as, of course, all of you watching this, I just want to thank you for your time going through this information. Hopefully, you took away pages of useful notes on how you can supercharge your sales team. But just to summarize this, make sure you invest in the tools and the technology and the systems to make it a lot easier for your sales team to perform at a top level. And that's the thing that I see that separates the companies that are struggling today from the companies that are truly thriving, is their willingness to invest in the right training tools and technology to support their team. So you don't have to do it alone. We're here to support you every step of the way. Again, can't thank you enough for your time. And as always here at Grosso University, yes, you are a closer.